Hello, hello. Welcome. I'm Charlie Newton, and this is Conversations. And I'm so happy to be with you one more time for an awesome conversation is just going to be off the cuff. And I have my good friend here once again, Ricardo Morris, who is the founding director of the Chattanooga Festival of Black Arts and Ideas, among other things. Just for those who don't know him, let me introduce him to some of you who may not know him. Rick is a native of Chattanooga and a 1980 graduate of Howard High School. He earned a BA degree from Tennessee State University in speech communication and theater. He has dedicated his life to working in the arts and to providing art opportunities to those that who would otherwise go without. Rick earned his MFA in Arts Administration from Yale University and was the first ever Yale Presidential Fellow from the School of Drama. I didn't know that. He was a fellow as well.
For he's a jolly good fellow.
And I was Old Dominion's first fellow.
Oh, see.
Black fellow.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we have that in common.
Yes, we do.
Amen. Rick is currently the theater arts teacher and director, I would say, at Howard School. During his career in the arts, Rick has been a teacher of theater, English, and dance. He founded the Dwight Edgewood Project at Yale University, which worked with disadvantaged youth through playwriting, and founded a number of festivals and arts centers throughout the United States, including the Chattanooga Culture Fest, a Taste of 4th Avenue Jazz Festival, Birmingham, Alabama, the International String Band Festival, Calhoun, Georgia, the Glenwood Jazz Festival, Chattanooga, the Green Street Arts Center, Middleton, Connecticut, the Harris Arts Center, Calhoun, Georgia, and the Chattanooga Festival of Black Arts and Ideas, Juneteenth Independence Day, a program of his 501c3 Chattanooga Neighborhoods Arts Partnership. As a natural artist, Rick always finds time to be a dancer, actor, and director, no matter how many projects he's working on. His hobbies include cooking, gardening, and home improvement. Welcome again, Rick.
Thank you, Charlie.
To Conversations.
I'm glad to be here.
Yes, we've had, I've had a lot of people comment on our last conversation.
Oh, okay.
So we had some good comments, and it was very in-depth and very much needed.
Is that why you have me back?
That's right. Right. It's good for business. You are good for business. So I wanted to ask you, first of all, about gardening before we get into this conversation.
Sure.
Yeah. Now, you have this fantastic, fabulous rose garden.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm flabbergasted. How many different species of roses do you have in your garden?
There's probably about 70 rose bushes.
Wow.
And I have floribundas, I have hybrid teas, and even I mixed in a few knockouts. So knockouts is kind of a no-care rose. And you don't just plant it and it'll grow. But I've been working with it in different ways to make it do some different things.
That's what I have in my yard.
Knockouts?
Knockouts.
Okay.
The
key is just to deadhead them like you do regular roses. Most of them just put them there and just let them go, because once they get so far, the blooms decrease. So if you keep taking the dead blooms off, you will keep having a lot more. And that's the key to all rose bushes. You have to deadhead them after.
Right.
They bloom.
Well, it's beautiful.
Well, thank you.
And do you care for your garden, or do you have someone come in? I mean, because this is like humongous work.
It is a lot of work, but it's my refuge. It's my solace. It's where I go when instead of telling people off, I go and pull weeds, and every weed has a name.
Oh Lord! I bet you my name is all over your garden.
So I'm pulling weeds and calling them whatever I need to call them at that point, right? And then I feel better, and the birds and all that other stuff.
Yes.
It's I've been there for 23 years. I live in Glenwood, and it's definitely been a labor of love.
A lot of people don't understand, how important it is that people of your stature would live in the community, and how powerful that is, how important that is. When I was growing up, all of our teachers lived in the community.
That's right.
We had our role models live down the street.
Yeah.
And there was a lot placed in me through that. And that's why it's hard for me to get along with a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's easy I get along with them, but I think people misjudge me or misunderstand me because, I'm really proud of who I am. I'm proud of where I come from.
Absolutely.
I think I will be able to do anything right here in my own city. I hate the fact that so many artists have moved out of Chattanooga, but we worship them, but they have no connection with the community.
Well, and being where I am now was intentional. I mean, like you said, I grew up in Alton Park. We moved probably 15 times before I graduated from Howard. And so we were always moving. And part of what I said to myself was, once I get somewhere, I'm not moving. Because I was tired of moving from my family. My classmates, she said, every time y'all house get dirty, y'all must move. Because we moved a lot. I mean, it was crazy. So I lived in St. Elmo. I lived in Alton Park. Several different houses in the Alton Park area, in North Chattanooga. So all over Chattanooga we moved. And it was important for me to be back in the neighborhood. I didn't want to go, and this is not a dig on anybody, but I just didn't feel like I wanted to be in Ooltewah or any other kind of suburban settings, and that it is important that we be back in our neighborhood, and not that I'm trying to be an example, but you are.
But we love our neighborhood.
I love our
community.
Love my community. And been there 23 years already. And but it's weird because sometimes I'm out in the yard and I'm close to Cityco and some of the other places, and they'll walk through. These three guys came through, and they go, "Do you live there?" I'm like, "Yeah, I live here." They go, "Wow!" And so just even that little bit of interaction with those three young men that saw me out there clipping roses or whatever, or maintaining the yard, and they were flabbergasted that I lived in this house, So I think that definitely was part of my intent was to make sure that we were there, because I really feel, with desegregation and when we got the opportunities to move, we abandoned our neighborhoods.
We did.
And instead of trying to, to keep those communities, but because we felt like that was part of the American dream, was to be in the suburbs, in a house, picket fence, 2.5 kids, a dog, cat, whatever. But it's important, I think, that we come back and try to do as much as we can. And if we had, the gentrification wouldn't be happening the way that it's happening now in those neighborhoods. So.
And we're dealing with that even here. We're sitting in James A. Henry School building. Yeah. And I'm telling you, you are a stakeholder in Chattanooga. I'm a stakeholder, I would say, the west side and East Chattanooga, Avondale, because that's where I've lived.
Right.
In either East Chattanooga or Avondale or the west side my entire life. And I think that we bring something more to the table. I think people like you and people like me who never abandoned our community, even though we went off, but we always came back. We did a full circle. When looking at some of your accomplishments, you have been successful in many places. You have been a pathfinder in many cities. Why? I mean, I think our city should honor you more. I think not only the city, I think that our community should honor you more instead of competing with you. Yeah. We are so selfish. And I'm speaking now. My preacher comes out. When I look at you, my preacher comes out, because it's like, if you can be successful anywhere in the world, yet you choose to live here and to live in the community that, nourish you.
Yes.
Yet when we are sitting around some of these tables, we're talking to people who have really no connection with our community, making all the decisions about the community.
Right.
Like, I want to turn this building into an art school. People from out of town are making those decisions, what this building is going to be. I mean, it's so crazy. And right now, it makes me feel like saying, well, forget it then. I'm an artist, I can go back to, I can, do whatever I want to. You know what I mean? I don't have to be dealing with this kind of stuff. What do you think Chattanooga needs right now? I mean, go for any subject you want to, but what do we need? Can you feel my frustration?
trust me, I'm right. I really am right there with you because it's that the prophet in his own town kind of a mentality. I feel is part of it.
Yes.
But I think the other because I have come back. I remember my letter to Yale as part of my application to be admitted was that I wanted to come back to Chattanooga and make a difference and do this and start a theater and do all these other kinds of things. But I've come back to all of the different places like Birmingham and South Carolina and Calhoun and Connecticut. I would come back to Chattanooga, stay for probably 2 or 3 years, try, and then be literally forced to have to leave to find work, right? And to find work in my field in particular, because that's why I'm in it, because I'm passionate about the arts.
Right.
And so I'd have to leave. So that's why I'm at Calhoun Gordon Arts Council. That's why I'm at the Alabama Jazz Hall. Is because I've had to leave. And then when I'm there, they're like, "Who are you and why are you here?"
Right.
They're just fawning over, because they don't understand.
You have been successful in all these different environments.
Right. But coming home is the hardest part, because I never feel like I'm. It's almost like because the question here when you talk to somebody is what school, and when they say school, they don't really mean
school,
college or university.
No, they don't mean school.
They want to know what high school.
Right.
And that's why even whenever I put out my bio, I always start with. I usually start with Calvin Donaldson, Alton Park, Howard High School, because I want them to know, and then Tennessee State, and then Yale. To say that I was not limited by my environment, and that I had those people encouraging me to do more. And so they say, well, why do you put all these out? I said, people need to know that I could come out of Calvin Donaldson and be successful. I could come out of Alton Park, and I could live in those neighborhoods and still and have the support. I grew up in the New Mount Carmel Baptist Church, was on Washington Street, off Main Street.
Yes.
And my whole life growing up was there. So my English teacher was my pastor's wife. For my whole 3 years that I was at Alton Park, my music teacher was the organist.
And who was your music teacher?
Carolyn Brown.
One of my best friends.
Yeah. And Miss Crutcher was my English teacher.
Yeah. Did you know Mr. Good before her? Did you know Mr. Good?
I don't think so.
Mr. Good got me into. I was one of 3 of the first blacks to be in the Chattanooga Boys Choir.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then my voice changed. And
that was it. Yeah, you started too late. But that was the community, right? And I knew that Sunday, if I had done anything, there was going to be a report to my grandmother, my granddad, and my mom.
Yes.
Yeah, everybody was going to hear about what I had done or not done.
Right.
In English, in music, or what have you.
Yes.
And so that community was always there. And my mom went to Howard. My uncle went to Howard.
Wow.
Ahmed Howard. My nieces and nephews. So we did this whole generational thing about going to Howard.
You feel like you were a part of something. I actually had a black man ask me the day before yesterday, what do you mean about arts and culture? I was talking about the importance of arts and culture. And I'm not going to say who it was. He actually asked me, what do you mean? I was kind of like taken aback. Why would you be asking me? What I mean about arts and culture.
Yeah.
But what you're describing is that.
It is absolutely that. It's absolutely that. And when I got to Howard, I had C. Lamont Hogan as my music teacher. David Sharp was my band director. Miss Hunt was my art teacher. And they never put any limitations on us.
Nicolette?
She was my homeroom and my art teacher.
Another close friend of mine.
See how it works?
Yes, we used to argue. I mean, we loved each other because we loved to argue with each other about art. And that actually made us very, very close.
Yeah, she was my homeroom teacher the whole time.
Yes.
And I wasn't even in her art class, but I saw one project that she was working on, and I asked her if I could do it. And she didn't even hesitate to say yes. And so every day in homeroom, I would work on that art project and not even being in one of her art classes because she allowed that opportunity because I asked for it, right? And so even with Mr. Sharp and band, he would take us to DCI, which is a drum and bugle corps, out of town, without even a thought. And then Miss Robinson, is she Robinson now? Yeah. Miss Davidson. She's Davidson now. But she was Robinson when she was my teacher for 3 years at Alton Park. She took us to Washington, D.C. We'd never been out of Chattanooga.
Right.
But she had that kind of insight that we needed to be outside of the city. And so that was a community. I mean, it was a community of teachers who really cared and were not afraid of us, that would stand up and tell us what was right and what was wrong, and continually telling us that we had to be better.
Right.
That you've got to be better.
Yes.
That you've got to be better.
Yes.
5 times better. I remember Miss Blackshear. You got to be 5 times better. Mr. Lewis, you got to be 5 times better.
Yes.
And that's how we were taught. You know,
Yes.
the whole time. Mr. Hogan had us singing Bach and Mozart and all the classical music, but we also were singing spirituals.
You know why? Let me ask you. I'm going to cut you off.
Okay.
I'm wondering, why is it that whenever I start talking about a black art school where we train kids in the arts, now art is a multi-trillion-dollar business now.
Sure.
We haven't been, we didn't have access as a whole. A few of us have broken through, starting with the Harlem Renaissance.
Yeah.
And now there's even more, since COVID, there's even more of a breakthrough now.
Yeah.
I mean, even more people are looking at my stuff now from elsewhere. And I'm really considering, let me get back into New York and London and Italy and stuff like this instead of fighting with these people about stuff that, you went to school, you know that there's racism and discrimination. Why are you sitting up here arguing with me or asking me about what's wrong, what does the black community need, all that kind of stuff. And I'm sick of asking white people to give me anything. So it's like, and I have white friends,
Sure.
and all this, but here what I'm saying, the frustration is that we can't even, in Chattanooga, it seems like we don't even own our own culture. We don't even own our own neighborhoods anymore. And when I was growing up, we walked different, dressed different, our handshake was different, we talked different, and difference is a good thing.
It is.
It is a good thing. It can be different except us.
Right.
The Hispanics can be different. I can enjoy the Hispanic food and their culture and everything. The Irish can be different. But when it comes to us, now all of a sudden, we can't use that word black, because, or entities come in. What I saw, this is just what I feel about it. Juneteenth. What happened? I mean, why is it that you would work and labor for years, and then once it's a thing now, and this is my viewpoint,
Okay.
correct me, and then when it's time, and you set up in the community, and you've been laboring for years, then you get forgotten.
Yeah.
That's what I felt.
Okay.
Because I'm wondering, why are these people having a Juneteenth celebration when Rick already does one?
Yeah.
Why not just support Rick? Why not just support him? And even you asked me if Splash was going to set up, unfortunately, we already have 2 art shows going on, so we didn't have any work.
Oh.
But I promised you that I was going to go and buy something. Because I know with our festival, I want our vendors to come back.
Sure.
So when they sell,
Yeah.
then they'll probably come back. So I was going to make sure that I was going to go there and buy whatever I could from as many vendors as I could,
Well, and I'll tell you, so a lot of times some things can sound like it's a conspiracy theory of sorts, but I think over the 400 years, over the definite years that we were in bondage as slaves here in this country, everything that was done to us was intentional. Right?
Of course.
And the legacy, we talk about the legacy of slavery, well, that continues. And I really do believe that our inability to work together and to unite on as a community is a legacy of that. Right? I mean, we started with the indoor Negroes, the front yard Negroes, and the field Negroes. And I'm being nice to the Negroes. And it never stopped in terms of that division. So you have the ones in the field that don't like the ones in the house, or the light skin versus the dark skin, so I think that kind of need to feel important was part of that.
Let me add to that. one of the most frustrating things to me as a visual artist is, well, I have several things, two major things, but the first major thing is that I see us chasing dollars first. And as we chase these dollars, now we think we're in competition with each other.
Yeah.
When there are millions, that's enough for everybody. So what sense does it make for me to compete with you when it's still peanuts?
Right.
You know, we're still getting peanuts.
Well,
you know?
because that was the mentality. I mean, even though, and I think that, again, that goes back to that whole idea, even though I may be lighter skinned, at the end of the day, I'm still black, right? Or even though I may be the one dressed in nice clothes in the house because I'm related to the
I'm still a slave.
master, I'm still a slave, right? And because, so, but you put it on and now you think you're better than the ones out there laboring.
I'll tell you what get me, Rick. And I just wanted some real conversations, so I'm going to be real. What gets me and my wife is that when we came back to Chattanooga, and we would meet some black people who were sort of like, I guess, made it or whatever. I don't know what you would call it. First thing they ask us, where do you live? And then when they find out we live in the hood, now all of a sudden they don't want to be bothered with us. They don't care anything about our gifts, our talents, our education, what we've done. It's just that it's like they try so hard to get that American dream. This is how it appears to me, to get out. That now they feel that they can look down on those who didn't want to leave their people. You know, really, that's what.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what about.
So that's the indoor, right?
That's okay. That would be the house.
That would be the house. Those are in the house.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And so I mean a direct correlation with that. And even if you look through history in terms of W.E.B. Du Bois and whatever, a lot of them were lighter skinned, right? For a lot of different reasons.
Right.
And a lot of it, I think, has to do with white fragility. That me as a dark skinned black man is much more threatening than one could look exactly like me, but if my skin was 5 shades lighter, I would be more palatable.
And we see that in the modeling industry as well.
We do. We absolutely see it. And commercials and all of that. And so that becomes the challenge that we have. You know, the measure of beauty has had a white tint.
And our kids are picking up on that too.
Sure.
Because I see that with Flash kids, especially the younger kids, I see how their image of beauty is a white girl with long blonde hair. Yeah. That's their image of beauty. They're fascinated.
You know, the woman did the experiment with the 2 dolls.
Right.
I mean, it's right there in the African American Museum where
100 years ago.
Yeah, 100 years ago. The black girl picked the white doll as which one of these is prettiest, and she picked that one. And again, that's part of you being told for hundreds of years that you're worthless and that you're ugly and that you're black and stupid and you're less than. That has an effect, and it is passed down generation. We did it to ourselves. You know, you had the paper bag test, right? That you couldn't be in the chorus in Harlem if you were in entertainment unless you were lighter, the same shade or lighter than a paper bag. So we've done it to ourselves, and mothers and families would say, "Oh no, he's too dark.
Oh, it was
don't marry him."
I'm gonna share something
You'll have
with
dark
you.
skinned babies.
I usually just share this in some of my Bible studies. Man, my own aunts did that to me. Mm-hmm. My brother was quote unquote kind of light skinned.
Yeah.
And that's on my father's side. They were kind of light skinned, right? I was dark, big lips, big eyes. Man, they would call me ugly and everything. Now I'm 5, 6 years old. They tell, look at him, old ugly thing, little big old lips, black.
Exactly.
I mean,
you're right.
They broke me when I was young, when I was just a child. These were black, my family members.
Exactly.
When I told my mother about that, she wanted to go in and, cause she's the kind that would,
love having.
Yeah, she would throw some hands on you.
Lay hands on you. I'll heal you one way.
She would do that.
Yeah.
She would, for her boys, she would.
Oh yeah.
She would hurt you.
Yeah.
And but she didn't because of my father. but when she found that out, she would never let us go back
Sure.
around them.
And
And it took years for me to get. I actually thought I was ugly
exactly
for years.
Exactly. It was hard for them to do that to me because I was the cutest little baby you ever wanted. I was adorable, you know. I had curly hair, but I was dark as coal, you know. But and we still do it now. We still do that same thing now. So you have all of that, those challenges. I really don't think that, you know, people look at desegregation as some benevolent act.
Yes.
It was not.
Right.
It was not a benevolent act. And yeah, there may be some people that thought this was the best thing to do for the country and the community, but it wasn't. The first rule of war is to divide and conquer, right? If you want to bus and integrate schools, there was a better way to do it than you did it. You only bused black kids. You didn't bus any white kids. If we want to bus kids from a white school to black school, let's say it's a high school, 10 through 12. Well, all the 10th graders went to the white school, and then you bus all the 11th graders from the white school to the black school, right? That would have been a more equitable way to bus and to integrate the schools. But they didn't do that. They just picked the top 10% of the black kids in the school and sent them to the white school. So not only did they not take any random kid, they only took the most, the higher achieving kids. And now, and I can't blame parents for it, but I was looking at the Sunday paper when they were doing the signing for the basketball draft for colleges. There were all black boys, young men, and Macaulay had about 5, Baylor had about 2. There were none from Howard, Riverside, or Tyner. What is that? And I thought, here's absolute evidence, you know, that not only did they do that part of it, but now you've stripped all of our athletes.
We see that in the
and brought them to this.
historically HBCUs too.
Yeah,
You see the same thing.
exactly.
Yeah, you know.
And of course, you're going to be low achieving now because now not only have you taken athletics is important to any school.
Yes,
right.
That's where the money.
It's where the money, and it's important. And so parents are going to send their kids there to be that, but the school's going to have to be able to achieve. But if you can lure them away, and pay this and that and give them scholarships and these other kind of things, then of course the school is going to be in decline because not only have you taken them, you've also the higher achieving kids and their parents who are there to have them higher achieving, they're going to go away as well. And so now you're only left with low achieving kids.
Let me ask you this. Okay, what does the arts play in all of this? What role does the arts play, if any, in what this discussion?
Well, you know, and it's weird because education, I think, is always 50 years behind. And if you look at any of the studies and the research that have been done about the brain, the arts stimulate all of the academic subjects as well. If you talk about reading, for example, students that can keep a steady beat have better reading scores, right? Same thing, math, science, all of that. So using the arts as a tool to teach those, but also just students' involvement in it. I had an opportunity to speak with kind of a recruiting person for IBM, and he was saying when he looks at a resume, he is looking, particularly if it's a creative position within the company. You may see kids that have math, science, have algebra, physics, all of these different types of academic subjects, and nothing in the arts. But you would see this other kid that doesn't have as much, but has some, but has arts and music and dance. He's going to pick that one because he feels that their ability to be creative, to think outside the box, to utilize the skills that the arts teach in a creative position, even within a corporation. So that alone speaks to how important it is that kids get at least an opportunity to experience all of the arts, visual and performing arts.
No, I learned a few years ago that all of the major business schools require now that their students have classes in the arts. Imagination, creativity. That's what's gotten us everywhere. I mean, anything that you look at has had to come out of that. You had to think that there was something beyond what the current situation. You had to imagine it being different, right? Right.
and create that difference.
I'm actually trying to do that with our nonprofit Splash. I don't want us to be the same nonprofit that we was before the pandemic. And just because of the way that I think, I know there's a reason for everything. So if there's a reason for everything, then there's a reason for the pandemic. And one of the things that we learned during the pandemic is that there is room for us to expand and grow. We're just doing this. This is new for us. Having a social media platform, filming and taping and what have you. And I'm wanting us to grow because what I'm trying to get at is I want to train kids so that they can become artists, dancers, whatever, even if they don't go to college. I'm looking at what I'm seeing in culture now and in our country, especially in Chattanooga. And I know a lot of our kids are not going to go to college.
Yeah.
So that doesn't negate the fact that they are gifted and talented.
Right, it does not.
And I think just like during the Harlem Renaissance, or even during the Renaissance, even during the quote unquote classical and Renaissance periods, there have always been artists, master artists, who trained the young.
Right.
So it didn't matter. All this other stuff didn't matter.
That's right.
So I believe we need that type of environment here for our kids, and no matter what field they're going to go into, because like you say, the arts fuel all of the subjects.
It does.
Yeah. And another thing that bothers me in Chattanooga, I know our children don't see many people who look like them who are successful.
That's right.
And that's a major problem in our city as well.
It really has been a problem nationwide as well. That just the idea of even when they turn on the television or they're looking at social media, the predominant images that they see of black men in particular are ones that are being arrested and drugs and so many other things. But I have noticed, and I think this is again as a result of the pandemic, and the Black Lives Matter movement this last time, and all the other things. Because I have a tendency to a fault to overanalyze stuff, so I'm looking at commercials.
Okay.
I'm seeing
Me
who's
too.
in
I
the
am
commercials.
too. I do that too.
I'm looking at how what environment are they putting these things in, because the commercials are there to persuade and to influence. Right. That's how they're designed to do that. Whether it's to buy something or to tell you that you can look like this if you wear this, and so I've seen an increase in black people in commercials. I've also seen an increase in interracial couples.
Yes.
And so again, trying to send that message.
But only one type of image of interracial.
Oh. Okay.
Couples.
What is it? You gonna say black women and white men?
Would you agree, Ayantha? You're an artist. Yeah. I mean, these things, they just jump out at me.
I look at that a lot. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or it's going to be interracial person, right? That you can look, that there's black and white, or there's Latino and black or something. You can tell that there's more of we're all kind of mixed, but
a certain image of beauty that's projected.
Right. Yeah.
And it ain't black.
Well, but I will, and it depends on the company now, because I have seen, I definitely have seen P&G, for example, that I think they do a good job. They've intentionally gotten really dark-skinned people in their commercials.
Okay.
And so that, I think it's just the idea that we're seeing more, and definitely Latinx, we're seeing more of those images, and Asian people in a lot of shows and commercials as well. So I feel like to me, making a commercial is the arts, because it's film.
It is.
And television.
It is.
The arts is taking the lead, right, in terms of
the arts taking the lead.
Once again, taking the lead in these images to create a different idea.
But our culture tends to, and I'm sticking with Tennessee culture.
Okay.
Tennessee, Chattanooga culture tends to devalue the arts as far as taking the lead in solving a lot of these problems.
Yeah.
I see a difference in using the arts to solve a problem than the arts themselves just solving the problem.
Yeah.
I believe that art itself can solve a lot
Absolutely.
of problems. Just the creation and
The
expression.
participation.
I mean, a a uh, a concert can change your life.
It can. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, to this day, I listen to because when I went to this school, they did take us to the symphony,
Mm-hmm.
and I learned about classical music. And to this day, in my studio, we have all kind of music. We have classical, we have jazz, African, even some country. Any kind of music you want to name, we probably have some of that in my studio, and we play it for kids, when they're here.
Yeah.
Because music is so powerful, and it's so life changing. The arts are so life changing because you can get when the arts are good, when it's quality.
Yeah.
You can become immersed in that art form, either by making it or participating, or just observing or being entertained by it.
Well,
and it can change your life.
It absolutely, and it's again, I was saying how we turn to the arts for that, in this case with the commercials and television. But if you look at what went on in the pandemic,
yes,
that's what emerged, right? People singing
Yeah.
from their balconies, right? And
Yes.
people singing from the back of trucks, or opening up some galleries, or doing things
Right.
on the street.
And the verses.
And the verses, yeah,
everything
all
on
of that,
there.
all
Yes.
of that, and people seeking it out to find that sense of well-being within the arts, and as soon as we get back to normal,
Things are going back.
they're gonna go
Because
back.
people, it seems like to me during the pandemic, people couldn't wait to get back to life before the
Right.
pandemic. I don't want to go back. Well, I want life after the pandemic. I want new life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
I want something different, something new. Let me ask you this. This is going to be loaded.
Uh-oh.
I don't want to go too far. Maybe we won't go over time, but we'll do whatever we want to because
It's you.
right.
your space and your time, right?
Black art in Chattanooga. What's needed? I mean, I see you as an expert. I see you as a leader. There are many leaders. There are many,
Yeah.
but you're the only one who's here right now.
Okay.
What do you think? I mean, is there anything that's needed, or are we cool? Are we okay? Or because I know you want to move forward because you are promoting and perpetuating art, and that's why I love you. You perpetuate art.
Ooh,
You're good. Yeah, you're a perpetuator.
We call a lot of things, but perpetuating was not one of them. I'll take it.
Yeah. So, what, in your opinion, we can discuss. I have my opinions, of course. What do you think is there any? Are we good, or is there anything that's needed?
I think there definitely is, and I think the Juneteenth, the idea behind the Black Arts Festival was because I felt that there was a need for us to be given a platform.
Yes.
To show that we're not relegated to whatever little black box you think we should fit in, whether that's hip hop or graffiti, whatever you think is black art, we're more than that.
Okay.
whatever you think it is, you still ain't there.
Right.
Right. We're more than that. And
Right.
you say,
Right.
oh, this is no, we're more than that.
Right.
Well, we're more than that. So to be able to
like
express to people that we're whatever we want to be in terms of the arts, and that we run the gambit when it comes to creativity. Right. Anything that you're looking at as an original American art form,
Yes.
it was created by black people.
True.
And so. It's funny because you listed on there about me starting the International String Band Festival.
I did a double take on that one.
So when I was executive director at the Calhoun Gordon Arts Council, which is now called the Harris Arts Center, very, very mountain music. They had a fiddle thing that would come to town all the time, and there was this one woman who was like, "Oh, I really wish we would have some type of a festival." And I like country music, and so I started working on creating this festival for them. So the opening day of that string band festival, I got up on the stage, and of course everybody's like, What? I mean, they knew me from the Art Center for the most part, but to be there as the creator of this festival in Calhoun, Georgia, which is the home of Roland Hayes, by the way, and they had a museum dedicated to him because he was from there. And to introduce the String Band Festival just kind of blew a few people's mind. I made one of the first acts I had was the Chocolate Drops. And people don't know that they were at the top of their game, well, on their way up as a string band, all black, fiddle, banjo, of the whole 9 yards, and they were incredible. And they were on their way up. I got them for $5,000. The next year, they were nominated for a Grammy. Wow. That's how good they were. Wow. And I called. They go, "Oh no, it's $25,000 now for us to come back." I was like, "No, but to be able to have them as part of that festival."
Yes.
But if I didn't know that they even existed,
right.
And if I didn't have that interest in country and mountain music and string band, and when I would go in to solicit some of the bands, I would tell them that, let them know that I knew the difference between bluegrass and mountain.
Okay.
Because and the difference between string band and country, because while they seem like they're all in the same genre, there is something slightly different for all of them. But that to me is part of I forgot where I was going with all of this. So what's lacking here for black artists in particular, I think, is a sense of, we created the festival so that we could showcase what all we could do here. But there's still a challenge in terms of the unity within the city. One of the next things that I'm going to work on with the Black Arts Festival is to create a directory called BAND, Black Artist Networking Directory, so that it becomes a place, if you're looking to work with a black artist, or if you're looking to hire a black artist, or if black artists are looking to work with each other, and let's say they don't know a visual artist because they've spent their entire life in performance, well, they can go to this directory and they can say, "Oh, here's one right here," and then they can call. And
I love that.
But then beyond just the directory is something you were talking about, is that we have these monthly activities, workshops, or even just getting together to talk. Finding a safe space where we can talk. And thank you for being a part of the Artist to Artist talk that we did last week.
Thank you for
the information. People are still talking about it. They were like, "This was incredible," but it was honest. And while there were some white people in the room, they were almost invisible, I felt, because of the way the conversation was going. I was telling another group that there's this, you talk one way under the gaze of white people in the room, and you talk a different way when there are no white people in the room. So how do we create, and I think the energy is very different in both of those situations, useful but different. And so where and when do we have a space and a time and an opportunity to be out of the gaze of white people, when we can just be honest with each other and create ideas and generate.
My mind just went back to the black church, man. When you said that, and we was talking about slavery.
Absolutely.
Where even when there was a church service, the master would have somebody in there to
standing right there, making sure you say.
Want to know everything you're talking about. And there have been black movements here in business, that started. And I was even part of a group that I started. And before you know it, there's white people gazing. Mm-hmm. It's like, I didn't invite you. I mean, it's like, it's okay. You know what I mean?
I do.
I mean, it's like, why do we think we can't do nothing without, and why do, I don't even know about you. I'm not even going to say what I'm thinking. But I'm not even going to say what I'm thinking. But to me, that goes back to that slave mentality thing. Whereas,
but that's been my point the whole time, Charlie. It's my whole point has been that all of that is conditioning, right? It's conditioning. It's conditioning to think that you can't do something on your own. It's conditioning to think that what you do as a group of black people has less value unless there is somebody else in the room.
That occurs to me. It may be that black artists believe that we cannot survive without white people. You ever thought about that? I mean, when I think about it, that might might be conditional too. But white people don't have no problem thinking that. Well, white people don't have problems, and I'm not. I hate to say white people. You know what I'm saying?
It's, you know,
I'm not. I don't
anytime
mean
it's
it
a gross
derogatory.
and it's a gross generalization because
Right.
anybody who's listening knows
Right.
that it's a gross generalization, right?
Yeah.
That we're not
Denigrating,
or putting everybody in the same bucket.
Right.
Right.
I'll say maybe we should say the dominant culture have no problem in gleaning resources from the black community.
Right.
But we feel, and I will admit, I haven't been supported that much. I've been supported very little by the black community in Chattanooga.
Right.
In other places, like DC is different, New York is different, London's different, and don't really matter. But the South seems to be unique that these boundaries have been set up to divide.
Right.
And that's the reality of it.
And that's why I said that I never thought that desegregation was a benevolent act. I mean, we were talking about MLK and how, or even Black Wall Street. That to me is a better example because you have a community that did everything for themselves, right? To the point they didn't need any outside intervention from any other ethnicity, and because they were doing so well. They were destroyed, right? And so that to me is the whole. That's the whole point I'm making about desegregation not being a benevolent act. It was a way to divide us because we saw some growth happening. First, right after during Reconstruction, and they were blowing up more cities and then killing folks more then because we were becoming better educated. We were participating in government, all that. And then you had the whole art, the Harlem Renaissance thing prior to the desegregation in '62.
Now, this conversation would make some people who are white think that we're saying white people are bad or that all white people are bad. And I had a person here last week saying that why think about the past. I had a young white man telling me why think about the past. What would you say to that person? Because some people feel uncomfortable just because we're speaking about how we feel.
Right.
We're trying to have an honest conversation, and some people will feel uneasy or threatened. I mean, you have a lot of white friends, and you work with white people.
Oh,
so do I.
gosh.
I mean, I have white students, and I go into white schools. We're not.
No. Well, it's like the whole idea of the critical race theory now. Right? Okay. That's what they've latched on to.
Yes.
And they've totally blown it out of proportion, saying that it's the whole point of it is to teach to teach white people that they are black people that hate white people. That's what they're saying. Critical race theory is about, and it's never been taught.
All for white people to feel guilty.
Feel guilty, and it's not what it's, and it's never been taught in elementary schools, even in high school. It's a graduate level type of discussion that takes place with it. But the other part of it is that you can't erase history. I mean, it is what it is in terms of the history part of it. And if you're talking about the critical race theory, we're talking about, you would be hard pressed to deny that systemic racism doesn't exist, and that really is what critical race theory is saying. Is that throughout the history of this country, there have been intentional systems put in place to keep us oppressed and to limit our opportunities, and whether it's in buying a house or going to a certain school, it's been there. That's what history says, right? In terms of the racism that exists within this country. No, we can't do it all by ourselves. If you look at anything that we have done, even with the election of the first black president, our population, if it was only black people voting, he would not have been elected. Right. If you look at any of the civil rights marches, the white people arm in arm. Right. As part of that march. So if you're thinking that we're suggesting that all white people are evil, then you have a deeper problem.
Well, the problem really starts with it goes back to slavery again, but because to enslave a people and treat a people like animals or less than animals, what could they use? They had to use black and white.
Right.
And the fact that we are limited by these terms. We can't just say human beings
Right.
because we're all human beings. There's only one race. There aren't more than one race. There's only one race.
Right.
But slavery, it not only damaged black people, it damaged all people.
It did.
I mean, we haven't recovered. Blacks haven't recovered, and whites haven't recovered from slavery.
That's right.
You know, so there has never been any type of closure. But if you can't discuss a thing, how will you get closure?
Well, and that's the reason why it hadn't been, because it gets to the point where I mentioned white fragility from the beginning, and people saying, "Oh, I don't need to know the history. I wasn't responsible. I didn't do it."
Yes.
That's always the default answer to it. While you may not have done it, we're still part of today, and we're still living in.
And you're a beneficiary of it.
And you're the beneficiary of it. That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
And so that becomes the other challenge but I think the conversations have to continue.
Yeah.
And for those who feel that it is hard, and that they don't necessarily want to feel like they're being blamed or denigrated or whatever, stick with it. And at some point, you will get past that. Right? That's the key, is that you can't just turn and run and hide because it's hard.
And this kind of conversation is important because, for me, the type of artist that I am, I mean, we're always dealing with this when you are creating.
Right.
You're dealing with your environment and how your environment affects you. You know, what you're dealing with in everyday life. All that comes out, even if you choose to ignore this stuff. Mm-hmm. That comes out in your art too.
Right.
You know, you try to separate your art from this stuff, but you can't, because art is linked to culture and history. Your art, the type of why do you make art that's about nothing? There's a reason for that. You know what I mean? And it's difficult to even make art honestly, dealing with all this mess. So we had started a discussion about, and I do want to hit on this discussion. One of the issues I have, and one of the problems I have, is there's so much talent in this city. I'm talking about black art now, black artists. But we need some more information. We need training. We need all this stuff. And some of us have gone and got the training and the information and have sort of lived the life, you know. I've been connected to a major gallery in New York, you know.
Right.
So I know what it's like to get to that level. And we could share it. But sometimes I feel, in the past when, it's kind of like a natural teacher. If I see somebody doing something wrong, I tell them right there, you shouldn't do that way. It just comes out. Right. But sometimes people get sort of, I believe, offended, or maybe I think that I'm all that in a bag of chips, and I am. But hey, you need to know. You need to get yourself. Yeah. I mean, I work hard to get to where
we won't check off humble. What is humble anyway?
I mean, come on. I mean, you need to recognize yourself if nobody else does.
It's so funny because when and you get this comparison, because I'm an administrator. That's really I say that's my passion, but I love the arts, and so both left and right work for me. That I love the arts, and so part of that love for the arts led me to the administration end. So, but if I'm not doing those things together, then I'm miserable. I've had the corporate thing where there was no arts involved at all, and I'm like, ugh. Yes, it paid lots of money, but I need to have this art as part of what it is that I do in terms of administration. But I think you're absolutely right. So when they see me and I'm being this administrator that's on his game, then I'm the arrogant, angry black man. But if I look at my white counterpart doing exactly the same thing, and sometimes more, then he's a good manager. And I think women experience the same thing when they exert themselves as a leader and demand quality and excellence. Then they become the B word.
It's something that they don't understand. That it's for your good.
It is.
If you get better, then you're going to go further.
Right.
Yeah, you're
but
going
they
to
just
go
think
farther.
and so I think that's part of the challenge that we have, and what we were saying earlier about the ability for us to impart our experience. It's got to be received in the right way. And if people are thinking we're trying to be all of that in a bag of chips, that's not the intent.
No.
It really isn't. My relatives, my nieces and nephews, the people I work with go, oh, that's just how he is, because I'm like, this isn't right. You mean, I don't want wrinkles in the tablecloth. I don't want, I want a level of excellence.
You know what it's called? You know what it's called? Integrity.
Integrity.
And a lot of artists, many artists in our city, I'm going to say black artists, they've lost their integrity.
Yeah.
For me, I have struggled so long, suffered so long, and been through so much. That's all I have left is integrity.
But do you think that's generational? Because that's what I find a lot of the times is that I'll be 60 in December, and we were talking about how we were brought up and as soon as we start talking that way, we become old heads, right? And because what I'm getting with students and younger is like, okay, that's good enough, and I'm like, but it's not good enough. It's got to be excellent.
But
right?
in any level situation, they'll find out that good enough is not good enough. They're going to need to be They're going to need to be 10 times better.
Right. And good enough is a C, right? That's average.
Yes. No, D.
C's and D's are good enough. That's average, and that's mainstream, and you can pass and all those things. But excellence is an A.
And if you just want to be good enough, then why am I in your life? I'm not here for you to be good enough.
You're there to push them to that excellent point.
And that's the job of the village.
Yes, exactly.
It's the job of black men. Because black men are the educators, priests, providers, and protectors. And many of our families don't have black men who are that. And I believe that we are called, and our part of our purpose is to be that person who someone has to have high standards.
Yeah.
Because we have a long history of overcoming to have access.
Yeah.
We have a rich history of high standards. We are part of the ones who made it. Yeah. So, we didn't just we're the ones who made it through the Middle Passage, and we made it through slavery, and we made it through Jim Crow, and we made it through this history, and it's not because we had low standards.
Right. Well, and again, I go back to ask the question about it being generational, because I do feel like at some point we stopped having those type of expectations. I had one person explaining to me so we did go through so much, and if we're talking 60s, 70s in particular, that by the time we had children or were responsible for kids that were born in 2000 or in 1990s, we didn't want them to have to go through and struggle,
right,
and feel like you had to be 5 times better. So did we as a community drop the ball by not continuing that legacy of excellence and expectations in our kids because we didn't want them to feel the racism, we didn't want them to feel less than, and so we started providing, without question, things that we had to struggle to get. So that, to me, that is kind of a different question. Is that did we create what we have now? I mean, somebody had to be responsible for people being, just like people were responsible for us being the way we are. Who is responsible for our previous, next generation?
When I'm going into the schools, I'm going to go to the schools. I probably agree with you as far as the parenting.
Mm-hmm.
I think parenting has, or lack thereof, has a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
But also, I've gone into schools, man, and I've seen teachers, and usually in the art classes, the teachers have been white teachers teaching black kids. And so, matter of fact, I've never seen a black art teacher in the schools yet. And I don't go into the schools that often, but the times I've been in the schools, in the last, say, decade, I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
And But what I have seen is that teachers letting our boys, especially, get away with doing nothing. And I've seen a lot of babying, man.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of. When our teachers put the fear of God in us, I mean, my teachers put the fear of God.
But again, I mean, there's just so. I mean, if we just started trying to enumerate all of the different cause and effects, right? Because so when you have desegregation, you now and you have another law that allows for 60 to 40% in terms of race within the classroom. I don't know if you knew that was an actual law rule that happened with schools.
I didn't know that.
It could not be more than 60% of one ethnicity, and trying to create that diversity within the teaching staff itself. So when you have that, because when I was at Howard, it was, you know, we were all black students and 95% black teachers.
Yeah.
But when you have that opportunity to do more than be a teacher, men start leaving the profession of teaching. Black women saw a lot more opportunities in other areas. Now it can be CEO of corporates. So that whole education. So again, another smaller, another link in the chain of the cause and effect. So now we don't see black men teaching because now they can be CEOs and executives and make more money, which they need to. Right. So then the cause and effect of that is that if we pay teachers more, you probably have more black men or more men, period, within the classroom. So there's just so many different layers to it and levels of cause and effect. And you know, to me, I think a lot of it does go back to you can't found the country on slavery and think that it's not going to be in every aspect of every part of life. It is somehow impacted by that slavery, whether it's being the beneficiary of it or whether it's being the oppressed that are still dealing with some of those issues.
Let me ask this then, before we go. Are you free? Do you feel like you're free?
I do not. I do not.
Why not?
Because every time I get in my car, I'm afraid that I'm going to be stopped, and I'm afraid I can't. I told somebody else this story. I was pulling into Walmart one day, and they have those little blue lights on the buggy pusher, and all I saw was the blue light flash. My heart was stopped. I thought, "Oh Lord, I'm going to be killed." So no, I'm not free, and a blue light in Walmart's parking lot sends me into a panic because of that whole idea of the policing. And it's so funny that and I know they're not a lot of bad cops. I mean, not all cops are bad. I'll say it that way. But you have as a police officer, you have the opportunity to change the narrative for your profession. Right, until you start turning them in and insisting that and doing your own policing within your police department. I don't have time to determine whether you're a good cop or a bad cop when you're pulling me over. How am I going to make that determination at that point? I can't. And so you've got to police it to the point where you win that confidence back as part of it. So, the policemen came out of the slave catchers. You know, that was their next job after slavery was gone. That's what their job was before, and then they turned into police officers. So this is the legacy of that. So I don't feel free. I don't feel free that I can fully realize who I am to do what I want to, or if I walk into a space, I've got to survey the room to see who's in it, right, and determine how.
That's the
okay,
first
so which
thing.
code? What am I going to be today? You know, who am I today? And I try to be as genuine as possible in all circumstances, and it doesn't work out for me.
Right? It doesn't.
Because people stop saying let's not bring Rick to this meeting. Right. We don't want to hear all this stuff that he's going to say about this, that, and the other. Well, if I'm lying, then just tell me, correct it, give me the truth. And whenever you've got to monitor what you say, how you act, where you go, when do you go, that's not freedom. That's not freedom. And I don't feel comfortable navigating in this country at my will, right? Whether it's being pulled over or whether it's having to decide who's going to react negatively about something I've said, therefore they're going to call my boss, and then they're going to You know, are they going to call the grantors or something?
Right,
There's
yeah.
always some kind of
I know. Yes.
repercussions from it, and you may not be aware of them, but
Right.
you know that they exist, and so that puts you in an oppressed kind of a mode, even in your language and your talk.
And I think that has, I think a lot of many of the black leaders, especially in the arts and nonprofits in this area, that may be why they're afraid to speak out and speak up or really be radical about being black.
Yeah.
You know, but I remember a few years ago, I had a conversation with somebody, and they wanted, and matter of fact, it had to do with a trip the youth involved in, going to Kentucky.
Oh, yeah.
And talking about, well, the person came to my studio, I think I scared that lady to death. Because, you know, I raised my voice, but I'm passionate. I love everybody.
Yeah.
I don't hate anybody, you know, and I love everybody. I'll work with everybody and anybody, you know, but because I was a black man, I was being me. I forget. Well, why are you coming to talk to me if you don't want to talk to me? You want to talk to somebody else, you know. You know, I have to change my whole personality.
Right. Who am I today?
I cannot code switch. I'm not good at code switching.
Who do you want me to be today?
Yes. And I'm not good at code switching. And even when I try, it don't last long. And so for a whole year, you know, I could tell people didn't want to deal with me.
I feel that to a certain extent even now. And I will say that because I've tried to be genuine in everything that I've done, everything that I continue to try and do, for those who do continue to support me and support what I do and support the organization, they've gotten to know me.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And that's the big difference, right?
Yes.
If you're looking for a funder and they're just looking at you on the exterior, they may be, or talking to you one time.
Right, one time.
But for me, with some of the funders and people that I work with, we've gotten to know each other. Right. And so, despite my outspokenness, they feel like what I'm saying is useful. And so they continue to support.
Right.
And to me, that's what it takes when we talk about people that are going. You know, it can't be some corporation up here totally removed from the activity down here. It's got to be somebody who's intricately involved in what's going on this level.
Yes.
To get to know the people that are going to be impacted by it. To know, what you're doing is worthwhile and it's going to be helpful to other people.
Right.
And so that's a different type of a
And just look at the track record.
That's it.
Look at the track record.
That's what you would hope. So yeah, it's been a challenge from employment on for me, and that's why I've had to leave every single time to end up to work. I've been executive director of 3 different arts organizations. None, one which was in Chattanooga, but we won't talk about that. But it's a challenge because you're never looked at the same because, how could possibly a black kid from Howard High School have this level of skill in Chattanooga? Or, so that's what, when we started talking about the school thing, they start putting you in these different categories based on those kinds of things. Oh, this school, that school, this neighborhood, that neighborhood. Where do you live now? What have you done with
Right.
And discount anything else that you might be able to do, or talents that you might have, or skill levels that you might have that someone else doesn't. So it's a continuous challenge.
Right. But
and I'm getting too old to care anymore almost. But as soon as I retire myself and saying I'm not doing it again, some inkling, some inspiration, some little flame flickers, and I go back to it.
I have to keep telling myself, this year I've been telling myself, do less, do less, do less. Because, an idea, I was just talking to somebody just last night, and they asked me to teach them art, Then all of a sudden, here's an idea. Well, there's more than you that need, to up their game. Why not do this, blah, 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 blah. Now we have a vision for, an art class that would elevate everybody. Because you know, bottom line, you know, I could teach them.
Of course
You know,
you
I
could.
mean, I have the
Well,
education,
well,
but nothing else.
you were going back to the whole Renaissance and classical, classical artists. Their workshop, their studios had hundreds of people in it that were learning at the feet of Michelangelo, so those that's not an unheard of
No,
of of a situation, and I think you learn better when you have that.
you do.
And even if we want to go back to the Greeks in terms of how they were educated at
Yes.
the feet of these highly trained, educated,
Yeah.
out of the box thinkers,
Yes.
and that's what it should be. And you had them their entire life. It's like you got them at what age, but at some point they had to snatch the this is complicated. Snatch the rock pebble from my hand. That means you're ready to go, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
you made that determination. They could be
Mhm.
there for 10 years or 50 years.
Right.
It's depending on you making that determination based on them as a master
Yes.
artist or
Yes.
whatever the field is
Yes.
that you're in.
Yes.
And these are people coming along that need and have to have that tutelage from you
Right.
as
Yeah.
a master craftsperson or a master visual artist or whatever it would be. So that's the ideal situation. But now we've turned into more of a meal where you just kind of run them through,
Right.
give them what you can.
And that's what I meant
who's
about.
next?
That's what I meant about seeking money first. Seeking that first. You miss
You do.
the substance.
You do.
Yeah. The real foundational
Right.
stuff that you really need, because you can get the money, but it's like, on a certain level, you're gonna find out you can't compete. You
Right.
cannot compete.
Right. You can't. And again, it's these are the conditions that we've created.
We have. Yeah.
And so the challenge is how do you reverse that? And some for me, just even being at Howard right now, it was not my plan to go back into the classroom, but I think there's a need for me to be there, and a reason that I'm there. And so while it may be one or two kids here and there, I've got to resolve myself to the fact that it may just be one or two.
But you know what? And see, that's what's important, because what you're seeing is how our culture has been devastated.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're doing is trying to preserve our culture.
Yeah.
And it's one student at a time.
That's it.
And to me, that's the one person is very important.
It is, but it's hard. It's hard to resolve because we've been about quantity,
Right.
and so just to say, oh, I spent a whole year and only one person.
That one person may win an Academy Award.
Absolutely. But that's a whole different mindset in terms of where we are.
You know what artists? That's an artist's mindset.
It
That's
is.
what that is.
Yep.
It's a master's
Exactly.
mindset. The maestro. That's how we think.
That's right.
Because really, and this started a few years ago, I don't really want to take every student. But, people don't know.
Trust me, I know that feeling.
I'm taking everybody now, but this is not going to last forever.
I don't want to. Yeah.
This is not going to last forever. That's going
And
to
you
be
can
a time.
tell within the first 15 minutes.
Okay.
Oh well.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just keep up. Just try to keep up. But then you have that student who, okay, this is why I'm doing this.
Right. That's exactly it. And that's what you kind of resolve yourself to that, is that this is why this person is why.
But to convince
Or
the
these two
parents
people.
of that, how do you convince parents, man?
Well, it's
I know we have to leave, but I have to
I
ask
know,
you
that's
that
a
question
whole
before we leave.
nother-
How do you convince
that's a whole
parents to understand
so
the value?
many of them though are so disconnected that you don't really have to.
Okay.
That's
the truth.
And I speak from experience, right? So disconnected from what I was doing, the whole, like I was Mr. Marching 100 at Howard, went to TSU as a music major. Not once did they come to see me perform in the band at a halftime show. Not once my entire school career, from Alton Park to Howard, not one time was anybody there to come see me play in the band, right? So I think, and I say that so sometimes they are so disconnected that it doesn't. It'd be better not to have them involved than to have them involved.
Wow.
I know that sounds
That's
weird,
deep.
but it's in some cases it's true, right? So because when you send kids home, they go on to all kinds of environments.
I actually, a few years ago, I got so frustrated with adults across the board, parents, funders, just grown folk,
Right.
you know, because I thought what we're doing, this is simple. This is not rocket science. What we're doing here. I decided just to focus on the kids and not even focus on
That's
what
it.
the adults are doing or
Right.
won't do.
That's right.
If they'll help or will not help, or if they'll fund me or not. Just don't even look at it.
No.
Just focus on the youth.
Right. Because then you can find things that can help them outside of that. And nothing beats parental involvement.
Nothing.
Nothing can take its place.
Nothing. That's like
But
the missing sauce.
It
You know,
is.
the missing
But
ingredient.
when you can tell that it's not going to happen, why spend all of that extra energy?
Energy. Yeah, it's the
When
energy.
you can take that same energy trying to make it happen when you know it's not going to happen and redirect it
Yes.
and put even more time into
Right.
that student,
Right.
I think that would be more valuable. But it's hard to do that because everything in us tells us we want those parents because we know they have to go home, right? And they have to need that encouragement and they want it. No matter how old you get, you still want
You
that
do.
approval
You do.
of your parents.
You do.
You know?
And I know
no
what
matter
it's
how
like.
bad
I
they
know
are.
how you felt because I remember, man, I went into acting when I was like in the 5th grade, I think I was. I was going to act right here at this building. We lived across the street. We had been practicing. I had been practicing my lines for 2 weeks, man. I knew my lines. I didn't know what it meant to be nervous.
Right.
I had done it on stage 3 or 4 times, you know. I was ready. And what I wanted was my parents to see me do my lines.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And when it was time for me, when we had to play that evening around 6 o'clock, we lived across the street. I went out on stage, and the first thing I did was look for my parents.
That's right.
And when I didn't see my parents, I was so hurt.
Mm-hmm.
Then fear came in.
Mm-hmm.
It opened a door for, even to this day, if I'm not talking about art or God, we don't have nothing to talk about. I became introverted and everything. Just from that one incident where my parents wouldn't even walk across the street to see me perform in my first play.
Wow. Yeah. And the fact that you can remember it so vividly shows how impactful that was.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
The fact that you relive that in your head over and over and over again.
Yes. So even now, I won't go on stage.
Post-traumatic stress.
It is. That's what it is. I will not go on stage to this
And
day.
so many of our kids have that.
Yes.
You know, they have that.
And we've seen it.
Yeah, I've seen it lots of times, you know. And so you can't be so quick to judge because, and I think that's another reason why, because we have been there
won't people
before.
support Splash? Why won't people support what we do? No, why won't everybody who know what we do, what we deal with, and see our kids in the streets killing each other, support something that helps?
Right.
You know, why do we have to beg them or call them or remind them or, you know, why won't they, you know, what is wrong with grown folk? I mean, on that note, you don't have to answer that.
Okay, I have another 4 hours.
I had to show my frustration. Rick, thank you so much, man.
My pleasure always.
We could talk all day.
And we do usually. So,
about everything.
Everything under the sun,
But
man.
this has been a great conversation because
Yeah.
people get a chance to see what two artists, what we might talk about.
Absolutely. And thank you for providing this platform. Yet another platform for people to hear the truth, to hear, for us to be ourselves with each other.
And that's what's so important.
It really, really is. So
Yeah.
thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you for all the work that you do. And I want to thank our audience for joining us. And we're going to have more conversations, so be on the lookout. And whatever this man is involved in, I'm asking you, adjuring you to support him and the work he do, work with him, because you've been doing some great things here, and we need you in our city, and we want to keep you here. We want you to be happy. We want all your needs supplied.
Wow, me too. That would be
right.
fantastic. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's been Charlie New with Ricardo Morris, and this has been Conversations with Splash. Bye-bye.